What was it like making that transition from working with him heavily to working with P. Diddy? Because he seems quite scary.
He's not scary. He's not scary. He's not scary.
In our last video, Why Cassie Stayed, we broke down the neuroscience of grooming, how love can be weaponized, and how trauma bonding traps even the strongest women in cycles of silence, fear, and false hope. And the response to that video proves something undeniable. This isn't just Cassie's story. It's a pattern, a system, a psychological loop that far too many women are caught in. So let's go deeper. Women in abusive situations often face neurological and psychological traps like trauma bonding, gaslighting, and learned helplessness. These aren't just emotional reactions, they're physiological responses created by stress hormones, memory disruption, and fear conditioning. That's why leaving is not just a decision, it's a rewiring. In this video, we're walking through 25 science-based strategies grounded in neuroscience, psychology, and trauma-informed practice that can help you develop self-awareness, rebuild self-efficacy, and strengthen a resilient mindset. Each strategy is backed by real research and clinical insight. And more importantly, each one is designed to help you take back your power, not just from an abuser, but from every false narrative that tried to convince you that you were stuck. Whether you're trying to leave, heal, support someone else, or simply understand the traps of toxic control, this video is for you. Let's break the cycle. Let's outsmart the psychology of abuse. Let's get into it. Women in abusive situations often face neurological and psychological traps, like trauma bonding, gaslighting, and learned helplessness, that can make escaping or healing very challenging. Get ready for 25 science-based strategies grounded in neuroscience, psychology, and trauma-informed practice to help develop self-awareness, rebuild self-efficacy, and strengthen a resilient mindset. Each strategy includes a brief explanation and supporting evidence from experts or research.
Number 1, educate
Yourself on abuse patterns. Knowledge is power. Learn about common abuse tactics, such as gaslighting, trauma bonding, and the cycle of abuse, to understand that what you're experiencing is not your fault or normal. Recognizing these psychological traps is the first step toward breaking free. In fact, experts note that learning about toxic relationship dynamics and emotional abuse can be empowering, helping you see your situation more clearly and make informed decisions. Understanding concepts like cognitive dissonance, the inner tension when love for a partner conflicts with their abuse, can also shed light on why you might have rationalized or minimized the abuse. By educating yourself, you arm your rational brain against the abuser's distortions. Document and validate your reality. Counter gaslighting. Abusive partners often gaslight victims, denying events, twisting facts, and making you doubt your own memory. Combat this by keeping a journal or other records of what actually happens. Write down incidents with dates and details in a secure place. According to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, journaling events can help you collect proof and remind you that your memories and feelings are real. You might also save text messages, emails, or keep voice memos if it's safe to do so as concrete evidence. This practice not only counters the abuser's false narrative, but also engages the logical parts of your brain, reassuring you that you're not crazy. The abuse is real. Over time, validating your own reality in writing can rebuild trust in your perception. Seek outside perspectives for reality check. An abuser often isolates their victim and skews their sense of reality. To outsmart this trap, reach out to a trusted friend, family member, counselor, or support hotline and share what's happening. An external perspective can confirm that what you're experiencing is abuse and is not acceptable. Sometimes just talking to someone outside the situation will help you see things more objectively. Others can remind you that healthy relationships do not involve fear, constant criticism, or control. Breaking the silence also breaks the power of shame that keeps many victims stuck. Therapists and support groups in particular, are trained to recognize manipulation and can validate your experiences. This reality check from others serves as a compass back to your own judgment when the abuser's voice has caused doubt. Practice mindfulness and self-awareness. Abuse can put your nervous system on high alert, making it hard to distinguish the abuser's feelings from your own. Mindfulness techniques, such as meditation, deep breathing, or body scans, help you stay grounded in the present moment and observe your feelings without being overwhelmed. Building mindfulness has been shown to strengthen self-awareness of emotional triggers. For example, practicing daily meditation can train you to notice stress or fear rising in your body when the abuser starts their tactics, so you can pause instead of reacting automatically. Journaling in a reflective way, perhaps during calmer moments, also builds self-awareness by helping you recognize patterns in the relationship. When do you feel most anxious or numb? What triggers your partner's rage, etc.? This increased self-awareness is like installing an internal alarm system. You'll more quickly realize, this is the manipulation starting, or these feelings are being imposed on me, which lets you respond with more clarity or take protective action. Techniques to calm distress. Survivors of abuse often experience panic, flashbacks, or dissociation, especially if there's trauma. Grounding techniques are simple exercises that pull you out of those intense states by anchoring you in the here and now. They work by refocusing your attention from distressing internal thoughts to external sensations. For example, the 5-4-3-2-1 method has you name 5 things you see, 4 you feel, 3 you hear, 2 you smell, and 1 you taste. This can interrupt an anxiety spiral. Another approach is controlled breathing, such as box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4, which activates the body's calming parasympathetic response. By slowing your breathing and heart rate, you directly counter the fight or flight adrenaline rush. Regularly practicing grounding skills, like pressing your feet into the floor, holding a comforting object, or describing your surroundings out loud, builds your ability to stay calm and think clearly under stress. This means that when an abuser tries to provoke or scare you, you can more easily keep your composure and not let panic drive your decisions.
Just start looking at them as if they're a third party. Just say, we can discuss this when you have calmed down, or I can see that you are upset. I can see that you are angry. Observing their behavior. Let it go by you. Almost like pretend like the words are like looking, whizzing by you. I always say it's sort of like dodgeball. When I was a kid, dodgeball was a big thing. So like I always remember like the words just like they're looking at you, hitting the wall.
So is that, just so I know, because we're going to get a ton of questions, which is, okay, wait. How do I allow myself to not speak?
You can say things like, I agree with you. I agree with you that we're not going to agree. I agree with you that that's your opinion. You can say things like that. I agree with you is always a good one because they kind of hear, I agree with you, but just make sure that you follow it up with, I agree that that's your opinion. If they're saying things like, you're a terrible mother or whatever, you just make sure that I agree that that's your opinion. Your triggers are not my responsibility. You can always say things like that because they often say, it's your fault this or your fault that, something like that. But you can always make sure to remove yourself from a situation where you're not being respected.
I love these phrases. I understand that's how you feel. Your approach is not working for me. Let's discuss this. Can you explain what SLAY stands for?
SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and you.
6. Establish
and enforce personal boundaries. Setting clear boundaries is a way of reasserting control over your life and signaling to both yourself and others that you deserve respect. A boundary might be telling the abusive person which behaviors you will no longer tolerate, e.g., do not yell at me or call me names, and the consequence of crossing that line, such as ending a conversation, leaving the room, or even leaving the relationship. Learning to say no to demands that violate your comfort is a powerful skill. It's not easy. Abusers often test or push boundaries, but consistently maintaining them can reduce the abuser's power over you. For example, you might refuse to engage in an argument when your partner is drunk, or set a rule that you will only discuss certain topics in a calm, respectful manner. Along with setting boundaries, surround yourself with people who respect them, supportive friends or family who encourage your autonomy. This not only gives you practice asserting yourself, it also shows the abuser, if they are still in contact, that you are not completely isolated and controlled. Over time, maintaining healthy boundaries helps rebuild your self-respect and teaches others how you expect to be treated.
7. Build a strong
Support network. Don't go it alone. Abuse often thrives in isolation. Victims may feel alone, ashamed, or cut off from support. Actively rebuilding your social support is a proven resilience factor. Studies of trauma survivors show that those with strong support systems cope better and feel less helpless. Try to reconnect with trustworthy friends and family, or seek out a support group. Many communities and domestic violence organizations host support groups, including virtual ones. A network of supportive people can provide emotional validation, help in emergencies, and remind you of your worth. According to mental health experts, having others who acknowledge your feelings and experiences gives you an important outlet and reality check. Even spending time away from the abuser with people who treat you kindly is healing. It breaks the monopolization of your attention that the abuser once had. These positive relationships release bonding hormones, like oxytocin, that counteract the cortisol and fear from abuse, literally helping to calm your brain. Remember that you are not alone. There are people who care and numerous resources, friends, counselors, hotlines, advocacy centers, ready to help you. Reaching out for support is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and intelligence in a challenging situation. 8. Seek professional therapy or counseling. Engaging with a therapist, especially one experienced in trauma or abuse recovery, can be life-changing. Therapy provides a safe, confidential space to process what's happened to you without judgment. A good therapist can help you understand how the abuse affected your mind, for example, how trauma triggers work, and teach you coping tools tailored to your needs. Research shows that therapy can help abuse survivors rebuild their self-esteem and autonomy and create a concrete plan for safety. For instance, in therapy, you might work on undoing false beliefs instilled by the abuser, "I'm useless," or "it's all my fault," and the therapist can gently challenge those and remind you of your strengths. Therapists also often guide clients in making a safe exit plan if you're still in the relationship. They understand the dangers and can help you strategize things like when to leave, how to hide money, legal steps like restraining orders, etc., all while prioritizing your safety. Additionally, specific therapeutic techniques such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can help you reframe negative thoughts, and EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, can help in processing traumatic memories so they hold less power. Remember that needing professional help is nothing to be ashamed of. Recovering from abuse often requires unlearning deep-seated psychological traps, and trained counselors or psychologists have science-based methods to facilitate that healing journey. 9. Rebuild self-efficacy with hobbies and achievements. Abuse often strips away a person's sense of competence and independence. You may have been told you're incapable of doing anything right. One way to fight back against that lie is to pursue hobbies, education, or career goals that interest you, thereby proving to yourself and perhaps the abuser that you can achieve things on your own. Engaging in activities that you enjoy or find meaningful, like joining a class, taking up a forgotten hobby, or learning a new skill, will boost your confidence and sense of identity outside the relationship. Every small accomplishment is a rebuttal to the abuse. For example, training for a 5K run, learning to paint, or fixing a household problem by yourself are tangible wins that show I am capable. Therapists suggest setting personal goals and celebrating each achievement, no matter how small. This might be as simple as mastering a recipe or as big as earning a certification. The key is that it's your accomplishment. These activities provide positive feedback to your brain, increasing feelings of mastery and autonomy. Research in psychology, stemming from Bandura's theory of self-efficacy, has found that succeeding in tasks directly builds one's belief in their ability to handle challenges. In short, every new hobby or skill is not just a pastime. It's active brain training in independence and self-worth, helping undo the learned dependency the abuser tried to instill.
I think that's part of the problem, is that their strategies work, which is why we get so turned around.
I want to start with you standing in your authentic power. And I love the concept of the Wizard of Oz. And I want to start with that because I just think it's so beautiful, which is that the wizard is really the narcissist in a way, which is this big head. He pretends like he's something that he's not. And he's actually this feeble little man who's afraid, right? And that's really what a narcissist is. And to me, you're like Dorothy, who's trying to find yourself. You're trying to figure out who you actually are. And what you're really trying to get to is Glinda, who knows who she is the whole time. And to me, she's sort of like your soul. There's a very subtle part of the movie, which is where Glinda is talking to the gang, and the Wicked Witch comes around, and she flies near Glinda. I don't know if you remember, where she says to the Wicked Witch, "Go away, you have no power here." Do you remember that?
Yes.
That's where you're going. That's where you're going. That's that authentic power. When you can stand in your authentic power, to me, it's aligned with source. When you are aligned with source, you know who you are and you are in your purpose. What people need to know is, like, once you know who you truly are, you know, you stand in your authentic power, and then that's the narcissist is like, "Oh, wait, you have no power here."
10. Cultivate self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness. Abuse survivors frequently struggle with shame or self-criticism. You might tell yourself you were stupid to stay or echo the cruel words your abuser used. To develop resilience, it's crucial to flip this script and practice self-compassion. That means treating yourself with the same empathy and understanding you would offer a dear friend. Instead of chastising yourself for feeling hurt or afraid, acknowledge that anyone in your situation would feel the same. Psychologists have found self-compassion to be a powerful healing tool for trauma. One practical exercise is self-compassionate journaling. Write about your experiences and emotions using a caring tone, as if you were consoling the hurt part of you. For example, you might write, "It makes sense that I'm struggling. I went through something very painful, but I am courageous for trying to heal." This kind of journaling helps process feelings without judgment and reduces self-blame. Other techniques include creating a self-care toolkit filled with comforting items, favorite music, a soft blanket, uplifting quotes to use when you feel down. The goal is to actively counter that harsh inner voice with gentleness. Over time, self-compassion builds an internal sense of safety. You learn to become your own ally rather than another source of criticism. Research shows that higher self-compassion is associated with greater emotional resilience and lower PTSD symptoms in trauma survivors, likely because it soothes the threat response in the brain and reduces overwhelming shame. 11. Use positive affirmations to rewire your inner voice.
I am the queen of a reframe, okay? It's not that I didn't get the role, it's that your movie no longer is going to be as good as it could have been. Because I'm not in it.
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't break up with me, you released me.
Yes.
From being in your rap.
Come on.
From being in your rap. And you can call it delusional, but I call it a reframe. And I feel like shifting the perspective always that to me is the trick. You're not going to always be able to change the outcome, but you can always change how you looked at it. You know what I mean?
Years of emotional abuse can turn one's inner voice into a replica of the abuser's insults and pessimism. A science-backed way to start rewiring those negative thought patterns is through regular positive affirmations. These are short, empowering statements you repeat to yourself daily to reinforce a healthier self-image. For example, you might say, "I am worthy of love and respect. I am strong and capable," or "I deserve to be safe and happy." While it might feel awkward at first, repetition of affirmations can gradually chip away at deeply ingrained negative beliefs. Mental health practitioners often recommend writing affirmations on cards and reading them each day. In one strategy, therapists have clients create a deck of affirmation cards with personalized positive statements and encourage reading them every morning to set a constructive tone. This works on a neural level by creating new associations. Each time you state an affirmation, you engage neural pathways of self-referential thinking in a positive way, and over time, those pathways get stronger. It's like doing mental exercises to build a muscle of self-esteem. Research in cognitive psychology has shown that positive self-statements can counteract stress and improve problem-solving under pressure, especially when one truly reflects on and believes the affirmations. So, whenever you catch yourself thinking, "I can't do anything right," an old abuse script, deliberately replace it with a prepared affirmation like, "I am doing my best, and my best is enough." Bit by bit, you overwrite the abuser's voice with your own kinder, more accurate voice. 12. Employ the gray rock method. Disengage from manipulation. Some abusers, particularly narcissistic or highly manipulative individuals, feed on your emotional reactions. If you get upset, argue back, or show fear, it gives them a sense of power. The gray rock technique is a short-term coping strategy to make yourself as emotionally uninteresting and non-reactive as possible, like a gray rock. If you must interact with an abuser, for instance, during a necessary conversation or co-parenting, you keep your responses neutral and brief. You might give one-word or non-committal answers, avoid eye contact, and show no visible emotional response to provocations. You also refrain from sharing personal information that the abuser could use against you. By doing this, you deprive the abuser of the drama or dominance they seek. Over time, if you're consistently boring to antagonize, the abuser may lose interest in engaging in their mind games as frequently. It essentially sets a boundary without words. You're not giving them the reaction they want. However, a caution: use this method carefully and only in safe circumstances. If an abuser is violent, gray rocking could anger them more in some cases, so prioritize safety. Many therapists recommend gray rocking as a protective measure when direct confrontation isn't feasible and you're planning to exit the relationship soon. It's not a permanent solution, but it can be a mental armor in the interim. By staying emotionally steady and distant, you also help your own mind not get so entangled in their chaos, which preserves your emotional energy for planning your next steps. 13. Develop a safe exit plan. One of the biggest psychological barriers in abuse is fear. Fear of the abuser's retaliation, fear of the unknown, fear of not coping alone. Having a concrete safety plan can reduce that fear by replacing the unknown with at least a roadmap. A safety plan is a personalized, practical plan that includes ways to remain safe while in the relationship, preparing to leave, and after leaving. This might involve packing an escape bag with essentials, keys, documents, money, medications, identifying a safe time or way to get out, and arranging a destination, like a trusted friend's house or shelter. It also includes steps like memorizing important phone numbers, code words to alert friends or children, and keeping any evidence of abuse for legal purposes. The process of safety planning is often done with the help of domestic violence advocates or counselors, and it is grounded in both psychological empowerment and practical risk reduction. Knowing ahead of time how to respond in a crisis, for example, if he becomes physically aggressive, I will move to a room with an exit and not a small enclosed space like the bathroom, can save your life. It also gives a sense of control back to you. The National Domestic Violence Hotline and other organizations provide interactive safety planning tools to cover things one might not think of in panic. By visualizing different scenarios and how you'd handle them, you train your brain to act effectively rather than freeze. This proactive approach can ease anxiety because you're not just worrying, you're problem solving. Overall, a well-thought-out exit plan is a form of power. It's you taking charge of your future and safety which directly combats the helplessness the abuser wants you to feel. 14. Work toward financial independence. Financial abuse, controlling money, preventing you from working, or sabotaging your economic freedom is a very common tactic used by abusers to trap their partners. This creates a neurological trap of dependence and fear. How will I survive financially on my own? Regaining control of your finances is thus a critical empowerment strategy. Start by educating yourself on budgeting, credit, or any relevant skill. Many communities have free financial literacy workshops for women, and domestic violence programs sometimes offer economic empowerment classes. Even if you have limited income, begin saving whatever small amount you can secretly set aside. The act of saving even $5 is psychologically powerful because it's proof of your growing autonomy. Researchers note that financial empowerment is about more than just money. It's about reclaiming your autonomy and self-worth after financial control was used to constrain you. If possible, open a bank account in your name only, or get a credit card with a low limit to start building your own credit history. If you haven't been working, consider steps toward employment or job training. Local job centers or nonprofits can help with resume building, interview clothes, etc. Each step toward financial independence erodes the practical power the abuser has and also lifts your confidence. Remember, 99% of domestic abuse cases involve some form of financial abuse, so you are not alone, and there are resources specifically to help survivors become financially stable. Universities and advocates like Dr. Judy Postmus have emphasized that gaining financial skills and assets can pave a path to hope and freedom for survivors. It might take time, but every dollar you control is one the abuser doesn't, and that is both a psychological victory and a concrete means to facilitate leaving and rebuilding. 15. Stop self-blame. The abuse is not your fault. A hallmark of psychological abuse is that the perpetrator blames the victim for the abuse. You made me do this. If you weren't so X, I wouldn't have to hurt you. Victims often internalize this and start feeling ashamed as if they caused or deserved the maltreatment. Breaking this mental trap is essential for healing. Continuously remind yourself of this truth. The only person to blame for abuse is the abuser. No action or imperfection of yours justifies someone choosing to abuse you. As the Iowa Domestic Violence Center plainly states, you have not made your partner abuse you, and you don't have to stay and take their abuse. It can help to list in a journal all the ways you tried to cope or please your abuser. I minimized my needs, I apologized, I forgave, I walked on eggshells, and see how none of it stopped them from abusing. That's evidence that the problem lies in them, not you. In therapy, this concept often comes up early. Victims are guided to place responsibility back on the perpetrator and shed unjust guilt. This shift may feel disorienting if you've been conditioned to self-blame, but it is incredibly freeing. Some survivors find it empowering to learn about how abusers operate, e.g., the common patterns in how they shift blame, because it reinforces that it was a deliberate tactic and would have happened to anyone in your position. You can also practice a simple mental exercise. Whenever you catch yourself saying, "I'm to blame for this," counter it by stating, "He/she chose to do this to me." The responsibility is 100% theirs. Over time, this reframing will lighten the burden of shame and strengthen your resolve that you deserve better, because no one deserves abuse. 16. Face the fear of loneliness. You are enough on your own. But I don't want to be alone. What if I never find love again? Fear of loneliness is a psychological trap that keeps many people in abusive relationships long after they know it's toxic. Abusers often exploit this fear by telling victims that no one else will love them, or by socially isolating them so that the partner becomes the sole source of companionship. It's important to recognize that this fear, while understandable, is often rooted in distorted thinking. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Many survivors actually report relief and peace when they first live free of their abuser. One strategy to combat this fear is to gradually build comfort in your own company. Try doing small things independently, like going to a cafe alone, watching a movie you like, or picking up a solo hobby, and notice that these can actually be enjoyable and liberating experiences. Additionally, strengthen platonic friendships and family bonds so that your social needs are met in healthier ways, proving to yourself that love and connection exist outside the abusive relationship. In counseling, a lot of work may focus on building your self-esteem and addressing attachment wounds that underlie the fear of abandonment. For instance, if you have an anxious attachment style, common in those who fear being alone, therapy can teach you how to self-soothe and feel secure even without a partner's constant presence. Remind yourself that temporary loneliness after leaving is a normal part of the transition, but it is far better than the loneliness of being with someone who makes you feel unloved or afraid. Many survivors eventually find that being single allows them to rediscover their own identity and meet new supportive people. Essentially, reclaim your relationship with yourself. Become someone whose own company you enjoy. This mindset leaves no room for the abuser's narrative that you need them or that solitude is too scary to endure. As you conquer the fear of loneliness, the abuser's hold weakens because you're no longer basing your decisions on the dread of being alone. 17. Let go of the hope for change. Hook. A major psychological trap in abusive cycles is the hope that maybe things will get better. Abusers often show occasional kindness, remorse, or promise to change, which feeds the victim's hope and keeps them invested. Psychologically, this is reinforced by intermittent reinforcement, the same principle that makes slot machines addictive. You get just enough glimpses of the good side or memories of early affection to hang on. While it's natural to hope that someone you love might change, clinging to this hope can keep you stuck for years. To outsmart this trap, ground yourself in the pattern, not the promises. Recognize the cycle. Tension builds. An abusive incident occurs, then the abuser apologizes or behaves for a while, and then it repeats. Acknowledge how many cycles you've already been through. As one psychologist put it, intermittent good moments create a powerful illusion that keeps victims trapped. But an illusion is not reality. It may help to write down every abusive incident in one column and any good acts in another, seeing the long list of hurtful behaviors next to a short list of apologies or gifts can put things in perspective. Remind yourself that true change in an abuser is extremely rare and requires long-term effort on their part, therapy, accountability, which is beyond your control. Many survivors find it useful to shift hope away from hoping they will change toward hoping I can change my situation. In other words, place hope in your own future rather than in the abuser. This mental shift is empowering. It moves you from a passive stance, waiting for something to magically improve, to an active stance, creating a better life regardless of the abuser's actions. It can be heartbreaking to relinquish the image of who you thought the person was or could be, but doing so frees you to focus on saving yourself, which is the one thing you can truly control. As one survivor said, I had to accept that the man I hoped he was, the one who appeared occasionally, wasn't the real him. Once I did, I stopped giving out second chances endlessly. Accepting reality over wishful thinking clears the fog of confusion and strengthens your resolve to break the cycle. 18. Understand and break the trauma bond. Trauma bonding is a psychological grip that can feel almost as strong as an addiction. It's the intense attachment that forms between a victim and abuser due to cycles of abuse interwoven with remorse or affection. Neurologically, the relationship's extreme highs and lows trigger powerful chemicals, dopamine and oxytocin during the honeymoon phases, cortisol and adrenaline during abuse, creating a chaotic roller coaster that your brain comes to associate with love. Victims can become biochemically hooked on the relationship's drama, mistaking those intense emotions for genuine love or thinking they can't live without the abuser. To break a trauma bond, first educate yourself about what it is. Realize that it's a known phenomenon. You aren't weak or crazy for feeling drawn back to someone who hurts you. You're experiencing a conditioned response. Next, take steps similar to overcoming an addiction. If possible, cut off or limit contact with the abuser so you can detox from their influence. This might involve blocking their number, not seeing them in person, and enlisting friends to help keep you accountable. Expect that you'll experience cravings or withdrawal feelings, intense urges to hear their voice, or a longing for the good times. When those arise, remember that every time you resist contacting them, the bond weakens a little more. Psychologist Laura Copley describes that recognizing patterns of manipulation is vital to understand and break free from trauma bonds. In counseling, you might map out the cycle. When I try to leave, he apologizes and I feel elated. Then abuse returns and I'm devastated. Which helps your logical mind see the trap clearly. Building alternative sources of emotional fulfillment, friends, support groups, hobbies as mentioned, is also key because those give you doses of positive emotion and connection that don't come from the abuser. Over time, as you experience consistent kindness and calm elsewhere, the chaotic bond with the abuser starts to feel less compelling. Many survivors describe a moment of clarity where the spell breaks. What once felt like an unbreakable tie begins to dissolve, and you can see the abuser for who they are, not who you wanted them to be. Be patient with yourself in this process. The bond might not break all at once. But with each day of no contact or emotional detachment, you regain your agency, and the trauma bond loses its hold on your brain and heart. 19. Harness exercise and meditation to rewire your brain. Chronic abuse keeps the brain in a state of high stress arousal, which can shrink your sense of mental bandwidth and keep you in survival mode. One way to counteract this on a neurological level is through regular physical exercise and mindfulness meditation, activities known to restore brain balance and promote healing. Exercise, especially aerobic exercise like brisk walking, running, or dancing, increases production of endorphins, natural mood lifters, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein that helps repair and grow brain cells that stress might have damaged. Meditation, on the other hand, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the rational, calming part of the brain, and reduces activation of the amygdala, the fear center, over time. Interestingly, a study at Rutgers University found that combining meditation and aerobic exercise had a profound effect on women with a history of sexual or domestic trauma. After just 6 weeks of a combined routine, the participants had significantly fewer intrusive negative thoughts and an increase in feelings of self-worth. This MAP training, mental and physical, involved 30 minutes of meditation followed by 30 minutes of exercise, done twice a week. The synergy of the two activities was key. Meditation helped calm and focus the mind, and exercise helped burn off excess stress and trauma-related energy. Together, they reduced PTSD symptoms more than either alone. You can replicate this by, say, doing a 10-minute guided meditation in the morning and then a 20-minute jog, or any combination that works for you. Even gentle yoga can count as both meditation and movement. The goal is consistency. Make it a habit because brains change with repeated experience. Over time, you'll likely notice improvements: better sleep, less anxiety, more ability to focus on tasks, and even an improved mood thanks to endorphins and the accomplishment of getting stronger. Physically, you're also empowering yourself. Feeling your body become healthier and more capable can counter the helplessness and disconnection that trauma often causes. It's like telling yourself and proving to yourself, I am building myself up, literally and figuratively. This strategy not only helps you cope day to day, but actually fosters long-term resilience by reversing some of the neurological impacts of trauma. 20. Name your emotions. Name it to tame it. Abuse victims often have to suppress or second-guess their own emotions to survive in the relationship. You might have been told you're too sensitive or outright denied your feelings. You're not really upset, you're just crazy. As a result, you could feel a swirl of emotions, anger, sadness, fear, confusion, that are hard to pin down, or you might feel numb. A powerful neuroscience-informed strategy is affect labeling, essentially putting your feelings into words. It might sound simple, but studies show that when individuals label their emotions, e.g., silently saying to oneself, "I feel afraid," or "I am angry right now," it actually reduces the intensity of those emotions in the moment by engaging the brain's regulatory regions. Brain scans reveal that naming emotions activates the prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thinking and self-control, and dampens activity in the amygdala, the alarm center for fear. In one experiment, people who labeled their emotional state while viewing upsetting images felt less distressed than those who didn't articulate their feelings. The saying, "name it to tame it," captures this effect. By naming your inner experience, you help tame the emotional chaos. You can practice this when you feel triggered or overwhelmed. Pause and take a breath, then mentally describe what you're feeling as precisely as possible. "I notice I'm feeling anxious and my heart is racing." You can also write it down in a journal. This process creates a slight sense of distance between you and the emotion, so instead of "I am scared," identifying with the emotion, it becomes "I notice fear in me." That psychological distance makes the feeling more manageable. Over time, this habit teaches you that no emotion is permanent or all-powerful. Feelings come and go, and you can coexist with them without being controlled by them. This is especially useful when an abuser is trying to provoke you. Rather than reacting instantly out of anger or hurt, you silently acknowledge, "I'm feeling very hurt by these words," which can prevent the knee-jerk response the abuser wants. You remain more in control of yourself, which is both empowering and irritating to someone who aims to unbalance you. In essence, giving your emotions a name is a form of mental grounding that keeps your cognitive brain online when emotional storms hit, a key skill for navigating and eventually leaving abusive environments. 21. Counter learned helplessness with small wins. Learned helplessness is a psychological phenomenon where a person, after repeated negative experiences where they felt they had no control, starts to believe that nothing they do will make a difference. In abusive relationships, this often happens. No matter how you tried to appease or avoid the abuse, changing your behavior, trying to be better, the abuse continued, so you may have begun to feel powerless to change your circumstances. The danger of learned helplessness is that it can sap your motivation to take action, effectively keeping you stuck. To break out of this mental trap, you need to prove to your brain and yourself that your actions can lead to positive changes or outcomes. The best way is to start with small, achievable goals and then recognize your success in reaching them. Think of something that's within your power to do and that would improve your day or situation in some modest way. It could be as basic as organizing a drawer, calling a supportive friend, or setting up an appointment you've been avoiding. When you accomplish that, take a moment to acknowledge it. "I set out to do this, and I did it." These small wins provide evidence against the false belief that you're helpless. It's like collecting counterexamples to the statement, "I can't do anything right." Each counterexample weakens that belief. Over time, gradually up the challenge. Maybe learn a new skill, start a small savings fund, or attend a workshop. Each time you exercise your agency and see a result, even a minor one, you regain a bit more confidence. Friends or a therapist can help brainstorm attainable goals if you're unsure where to start. It's important to also frame failures or setbacks properly. Rather than seeing them as confirmation of helplessness, view them as learning experiences or simply as one-off events. For instance, if you apply for a job and don't get it, that doesn't mean "I'll never get a job." It just means this one application didn't work out. maybe the next will. By persistently collecting small victories, you retrain your brain from a state of passive resignation to active problem solving. Research in positive psychology suggests that celebrating small successes builds optimism and resilience, which are the antidotes to helplessness. In sum, show yourself that while you couldn't control the abuser's behavior, you can control other aspects of your life, and those aspects can indeed get better through your efforts. You are far more capable than the abuser led you to believe. 22. Use visualization to imagine a better future. When you've been in a long-term abusive situation, it's easy to become mentally confined to that reality and lose the ability to envision life outside of it. A powerful therapeutic tool is visualization or guided imagery, intentionally picturing a positive future or safe scenario in detail. This isn't mere daydreaming, it's a practice that can actually recondition your brain's expectations and reduce anxiety. Visualization techniques are used by athletes and performers to improve confidence and outcomes. And in therapy, they're used to help clients explore solutions and coping strategies. Regularly visualizing yourself in a healthy, happy life can foster a proactive mindset and boost motivation. For example, you might close your eyes and visualize what your ideal typical day looks like 5 years from now. Perhaps you see yourself waking up in a peaceful home, having coffee without fear, maybe going to a job you enjoy, coming home to supportive family or friends, and feeling safe. Engage all your senses in this exercise. What does your safe home look like? What sounds do you hear? How do you feel waking up without that weight of dread? As you do this repeatedly, your brain starts to treat that scenario as more possible and real, which can galvanize you to make steps toward it. Visualization can also be used in the short term, before difficult tasks, like having a hard conversation or attending court. Visualize yourself handling it with calm and courage. Studies have indicated that mental rehearsal like this can improve actual performance and reduce stress, because your brain has primed those neural pathways. Additionally, creating a vision board, a collage of images and words representing the life you want, is a tangible form of this practice. It gives you a daily visual reminder that there is something better ahead and keeps your goals in focus. The key is consistency and emotional engagement. The more vividly and regularly you imagine a positive future, the more your brain believes in it. This helps counter the tunnel vision of abuse, where it feels like there's no way out. By envisioning the way out and the life after, you train your mind to look beyond the current circumstances. As one study review notes, visualization can improve confidence and emotional well-being by giving a sense of control and direction. It shifts your identity from someone trapped in the past and present to someone who has a future. And that shift in mindset is often the spark needed to pursue concrete changes. 23. Set long-term goals and micro goals. Focus on the future. Along with visualization, practical goal setting is crucial for regaining a sense of purpose and direction. Abuse can put you in survival mode where you're only thinking minute to minute. By starting to set goals, both big and small, you move your perspective from just coping to growing. Advocates and experts agree that establishing goals and steps to reach them help survivors focus on what lies ahead rather than what's behind. For instance, a long-term goal might be live in my own apartment within 1 year or finish my college degree, while a micro goal for this week could be research affordable apartments or call the admissions office to inquire about programs. Write your goals down. This makes them more concrete. Then outline a very simple step-by-step plan. Achieving goals, even modest ones, greatly boosts self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to manage and succeed. Juanito Vargas of Safe Horizon explains that when survivors set goals and reach them, it reinforces the idea that they have the ability to shape their lives, countering the self-blame and doubt instilled by abuse. It's important to ensure your goals are your own, not what someone else thinks you should do. Ask yourself what you want your life to look like in 1, 5, 10 years. Those aspirations can then be broken down into actionable objectives. And remember to set some goals that are exciting or meaningful to you, not just stop abuse, but also move towards something good. Each goal achieved becomes a milestone of progress that you can look back on in moments of doubt. It may help to have an advocate or counselor work on a goal plan with you. They can provide resources or ideas for obstacles. Also, be flexible. Goals can be adjusted as circumstances change. The key is having something positive you're working toward. This future-focused approach does wonders for your mindset. Instead of feeling trapped in a hopeless situation, you start to see yourself as an active agent, building a new life. Psychologically, this shifts you from victim to survivor and eventually thriver. It gives meaning to the struggle by showing you what you're fighting for. Every time you tick off a goal or step, no matter how small, congratulate yourself. You're steering your own ship now. As Bill Gates famously said, and as cited to inspire survivors, people often overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can do in a year. By setting goals, you'll be amazed how far you can come in a year, and that thought can carry you through the toughest days. 24. Develop assertiveness and communication skills. Abusers often choose victims who are exceedingly kind, accommodating, or conflict-averse, or they train their victims to become that way through intimidation. As a result, you may have lost your voice in the relationship, finding it hard to assert your needs or say what you really think for fear of backlash. Rebuilding your assertiveness is a strategy that protects you not only in the abusive relationship, if you're still in it, but in all areas of life going forward. Assertiveness means expressing yourself, your needs, boundaries, and feelings in a clear, direct, and respectful way without violating the rights of others. It's the healthy middle ground between being passive, not speaking up at all, and aggressive, attacking others. Cultivating assertiveness can help protect against emotional abuse because it involves demanding respect and not silently accepting mistreatment. For example, an assertive response to a derogatory comment might be, "It's not okay for you to call me names. I want you to stop doing that." Now, in an ongoing abusive situation, an abuser might react poorly to that. So initially, you might practice assertiveness in safer contexts with supportive people or in low-stakes situations to build your confidence. There are assertiveness training classes and many resources, books, worksheets that teach communication techniques like using I statements, I feel X when Y happens, maintaining calm body language, and setting boundaries verbally. Role-playing assertive communication with a counselor or friend can be very effective.
People meet you, they size you up. Oh, he seems like this, she seems like that, she seems like she's going to be this way. Project what you want them to feel. I'm here, I'm warm, I'm open, I'm happy to be here again, thank you for having me. Let's talk. But at the same time, you can also think about how you sit, how you carry yourself, your voice, your tone. All these things play alone together. I know people talk about body language. It does play a role in the fact that, look, something as simple as when you go to meetings. Are you in the meeting and you're like this, you're small, maybe you got your phone out, right? What am I doing? I'm making myself small. My hands aren't on the table because I don't think I'm worth putting my hand on the table, right? I want to literally make myself disappear. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm going to maybe sit like this with my thing here, right? So this is telling you a story about me. It is. So it's a really subtle way to be like, why don't I sit with purpose? I'm going to sit like this. I'm going to have my arms out. I'm going to have my shoulders back. Something as simple as just my posture.
As you become more assertive, you send a signal to yourself and others that your voice matters and you will advocate for your own needs. Research and clinical experience show that assertiveness is linked to higher self-esteem and lower anxiety because you're no longer bottling everything up. Importantly, being assertive can deter potential abusers or controllers in the future. It's easier to establish healthy dynamics early on with new people by stating your boundaries and expectations clearly. In the context of family or friends who may be manipulative, assertiveness likewise empowers you to disengage from guilt trips or intrusions. One caveat: with a violent partner, sudden assertiveness can provoke anger, so it should be coupled with a safety plan. The goal isn't to change the abuser by speaking up. It's to change how you relate to yourself. You are retraining yourself from thinking, my feelings don't matter, to my feelings and rights do matter, and I will stand up for them. Even just internally, assertiveness breaks the mental habit of self-silencing that abusers count on.
I didn't apply to the FBI. The FBI actually came to me and asked me to apply. And then all of a sudden I said, are you guys serious? I'm barely learning how to shave. And with no confidence whatsoever, and they teach you to be confident. You can teach confidence. And what I tell people is the easiest way to learn confidence is to be confident about one thing. I don't care if it's you stack papers better than anybody else. I don't care if it's the way you make your bed, any small thing. Show me that you're confident. Show me that that's better than anybody else's. And the minute you can be confident about one thing, now you can be confident about two things. And then you can be confident about three things. This nonsense that I often see people say, well, just come in and be confident. I think that's nonsense. I think you have to learn, and your physiology has to learn to be confident about one thing. You know, with me, I was confident in playing football. Okay, I was fast. I could do certain things. I was confident about that. I knew that in basketball, I could shoot a three-pointer. Okay, confident about that, but not confident about a host of other things. To be in a room full of executives, I remember when I had no confidence. So how do I work on that? You cannot, unless you're a world-class actor, you cannot walk into a place and all of a sudden pretend you're confident. I tell people, learn to be confident about one thing. And sometimes it's knowledge. There is no meeting I go into that I am not well-read on that subject. If you want to achieve confidence, know everything that you can about a particular subject, and that gives you so much great confidence. And I've seen young people come right out of college and they're sitting there, you know, their elbows are in, they're almost mousy looking, they're nervous, they're looking about constantly, they don't know where to look. And, you know, and I tell them, know your subject. know your subject, because the minute they begin to talk about that, they begin to flower and change.
Over time, you'll likely find that your confidence grows, and the ability to say no or please stop firmly and without excessive fear becomes a new empowering norm. This will serve you well in all domains of life and is a key component of reclaiming your personal power. 25. Embrace a post-traumatic growth mindset. Surviving abuse is deeply painful, but it can also be the seed of tremendous personal growth. Post-traumatic growth, PTG, is a psychological concept describing how individuals can undergo positive changes through their battle with trauma, experiencing things like a renewed appreciation for life, discovering inner strengths, improving or valuing relationships more, and re-envisioning new possibilities for themselves. This doesn't mean the trauma is good, only that you have the capacity to grow around it, like a tree that bends and toughens after a storm. Adopting a mindset open to post-traumatic growth can be empowering. It shifts your focus from "I am ruined, broken by this" to "I am transformed by this." You might, for example, become more empathetic to others' suffering, or you might pursue a career helping other survivors, or simply have a stronger sense of your own resilience. If I survived that, I know I can handle other challenges. Research by psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, who coined the term PTG, found that many survivors eventually report positive shifts, such as feeling closer to friends, family, identifying new possibilities in life, feeling spiritually deeper, and recognizing their own courage. It's important to note that growth often coexists with pain. You can have both PTSD and post-traumatic growth at the same time. Embracing a growth mindset means you don't deny what happened or how it hurt you. Rather, you choose to find some meaning in the aftermath. For instance, you might say, "I lost years of my life to that relationship, but it taught me how strong I am, and now I'm going to make those years count double." Some survivors find growth in creative expression, writing a memoir or poetry, creating art, or in forming new healthy relationships that are consciously different from the past. Others find it in advocacy or simply in a private sense of pride for overcoming. To foster this mindset, you can use techniques like journaling about post-traumatic growth signs. Write about ways you have changed for the better or lessons you've learned about yourself. Even if it's as simple as "I am more assertive now" or "I value my freedom more," that's growth. According to Psychology Today, PTG isn't about denying the distress you went through, but about recognizing that adversity can shake your old beliefs and lead you to think in new ways about yourself and the world. In other words, the shattering of the old can clear the way for a new, potentially richer rebuild of your life. By viewing your healing journey through this lens, you transform from someone who went through something terrible into someone who overcame something terrible and became even stronger. This resilient mindset will carry you forward and help ensure that the abuse does not define you. What you did with your life after defines you. You deserve not just to survive, but to thrive, and science confirms that thriving after trauma is truly possible with time, support, and self-compassion. Each of these strategies, from mindfulness and social support to assertiveness training and goal setting, addresses different facets of the neurological and psychological traps that abuse creates. Remember that healing is a process. You don't have to master all these strategies at once. Even adopting a few step by step will start to shift the balance of power back to you. With knowledge, support, and practice, women, including those around Cassie's age and beyond, can retrain their brains, restore their sense of self, and break free from the cycle of abuse. You are not alone, and there is a path forward to a life of safety, freedom, and fulfillment. One strategy at a time. Sources will be automatically displayed below. Before we go, let's take a breath and just reflect. We just walked through 25 strategies, backed by neuroscience, psychology, and real-world wisdom, that can help women break the mental traps that keep them stuck in abusive or manipulative relationships. Whether it's a partner, a family member, or even a so-called friend, the same psychological patterns apply. But so do the tools to fight back. You heard it clearly. Abuse rewires the brain, but healing also rewires the brain. And that's where your power lives, in your awareness, your mindset, and your decisions. So if one of these tools resonated with you, don't wait. Start small. Start with the one you can commit to today. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's reaching out to someone you trust. Maybe it's finally giving yourself permission to stop blaming yourself. Because here's the truth. What happened to you may not be your fault, but what happens next is your choice. This is the kind of awareness I dive into inside my book, The 2 a.m. Code. It's a playbook for reclaiming your identity, your boundaries, your voice, and your freedom, especially when the world tries to tell you to stay silent, stay small, or stay stuck. If this video hit home, that book will take you deeper. Now, if you're still watching, I need you to do 3 things. Like this video if it gave you any value. Comment below what stood out to you most, or what would you add to this list. And share this with one woman who might need to hear it today. That's how we spread healing, awareness, and power, one conversation at a time. Remember, silence protects the abuser. But your voice, it's a weapon. So use it. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.